Early in his career, comedian Michael Jr. only had one goal: to take laughs from a crowd. His entire routine and even lifestyle was built to earn the laughs that he felt he deserved from the crowd. Yet, he wasn't growing as a comedian. Something felt off about his entire workflow. One night, he was set to perform at an orphanage, and as he walked in and saw the crowd, he realized he couldn't take laughs from these children, but he could give them the opportunity to laugh. That night, Dr. Michael Jr. not only found the key to the success, but the key to the heart of humanity. My name is Samuel Joseph, and I'm a current 11th grader at Reedy High School. In this year in ISM, I had huge plans, and I'm happy to say that I succeeded in them. But my goal through these last couple of months in ISM was not to make my own footprint, but rather to do everything in the goal of helping others. I had big visions and big plans, but I wanted to put myself into the seat of humanity to make sure that everything that I do in this year in ISM is to help others and to aid in certain troubles that they experience. This year I wanted to simply help others and make sure this was a highlight and priority of what I've done in ISM. So I'm going to quickly go over what ISM is. ISM stands for Independent Study and Mentorship Program, and it's a class that people can take, high schoolers can take in 11th and 12th grade, allows them to research any topic of their choice independently. Later in the year, they would meet up with a mentor, and they could further research and discuss their topic, and throughout the year, they would come to accumulate their research into a final product that would be something that would be representative of what they researched throughout the year. ISM is an amazing opportunity because of the professional experience that I've gained, such as LinkedIn, because before ISM, I didn't even know what LinkedIn was other than the logo, and I realized that it's an essential tool that people use nowadays to find jobs and to create connections. I've also had amazing experiences in ISM, building relationships with professionals and being able to become a better public speaker myself. And ISM overall is a class where you get to do what you love. And since I am in love with surgery, I had a phenomenal year simply doing what I love and researching something that highly interests me. Throughout the year, I had a quote that would guide me through. I wonder why it's looked like that. But throughout the year, I had a quote that would guide me through my motivation and motivate me to perform, to do well in ISM this year. My quote comes from King Solomon, which says, "A joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones." I saw this quote quite fitting for my project, as I was addressing osteoporosis, which is a disease, a degenerative bone disease. And the meaning of this statement says that a good heart and a good attitude will allow us to succeed well and to succeed overall. But if you let your spirit diminish, you won't turn out as good as a successful man. My mission this year in ISM was to research and discover a treatment to osteoporosis, one that I would have created myself. The osteoporosis itself is a gradual decay of bones among the older population, and I wanted to do all this research in the name of service, love, and care for humanity. So, what is osteoporosis? What is the disease that I wanted to tackle this year? Osteoporosis is, as I've said, a degenerative bone disease, but occurs amongst postmenopausal women and men as well. The process happens when certain osteocytes in their bones, osteocytes being something that replenishes your bone for the sake of making sure it's strong, especially during humans' early years. But when a vital hormone, estrogen, is being stopped in production, osteoblasts continue to eat up at the bone, while the osteocytes fail to repair it without the essential hormone estrogen, telling these osteocytes to, hey, put this bone back together. So what we get is bone getting degenerated, which is a huge problem and can cause fractures extremely easily. One of the reasons I wanted to tackle osteoporosis in ISM is not only because of my prior interest in science before joining the class, but also due to an unfortunate event that my grandmother experienced. She does suffer from osteoporosis, and a couple of years back, she fell. And this certain fall that would have been fine for you or me ended up doing significant damage to my grandmother. And as I remember seeing her in pain, I thought that it was something that I felt that I wanted to make a change on. And with this prior interest in science and this motivation to help people, especially this certain population in this way, was so exciting to me and was one of the main reasons why I wanted to tackle this topic in ISM. So as I began to research my topic, there were plenty of opportunities to gain information, but one of the most important things that I felt I've done to gain information was through the form of interviews. My first interview was back in November with Dr. Alexander Satin from the Texas who is a spine surgeon at the Texas Back Institute. While he was my first interview, it still went extremely smoothly as we talked about early steps to becoming a doctor in general, as I do have a high interest in becoming a doctor when I grow up. We talked about several different types of spine conditions, as osteoporosis was one of them. As he is a spine surgeon, there are lots of different conditions that can go on as a result of osteoporosis. Not only fractures, but many other types of surgeries and things that will need to happen as a result of osteoporosis. And all this information that he gave me helped me to realize the broader scope of what osteoporosis meant to a person. One of the most vibrant things that I noticed from actually speaking to someone was that it was very easy to talk to them and to be able to pick up information more directly rather than having to search for it online, which is, as we all know, could sometimes be a pain. Dr. Alexander Satin was an extremely good interview, and as you would see later this year, I did get a chance to speak with him again. My second interview was with Mr. Matt Nason, who I also spoke with in November. He was phenomenal as well, and as he is a clinical professor of a medical school, he also runs a hospital in the town in which he lives. After talking through a lot of COVID policies in the hospitals, as I was curious to see how at the time COVID was being treated, he also showed me more steps into becoming a surgeon. He told me about his process on what he did, what the schools he went to, the things that he did in order to get into those schools. He showed me that connections were vital, and that making good connections with people higher up can be a huge advantage to students looking to get into the medical field. Finally, we talked about several spine conditions that could happen as a result of osteoporosis as well, and this information significantly raised my understanding of what I want of osteoporosis in general, and heightened my thinking on what I wanted to do for my final product in ISM. Thirdly, and my last interview was with Dr. Nabil Ibrahim, who is a mentor and surgeon at the University of Toledo. I actually met Dr. Nabil Ibrahim through his YouTube channel, which has over 500,000 subscribers. It was truly an honor and a blessing, honestly, to be able to talk with Dr. Nabil Ibrahim, as after emailing him on his professional work email, he actually responded saying that he'd be overjoyed to speak with me, and that shows the humility of Dr. Ibrahim, and he is truly an amazing man. After discussing several questions that I had on spine surgery, such as x-rays and certain types of ways of collecting data on the spine, because collecting data could show the doctor or the surgeon how best to approach the situation going on in their spine. Dr. Nabil Ibrahim also invited me to a showcase, which was pretty much a lecture in the own college in which he taught, the University of Toledo. Seeing those other college students there, well, it was over a Zoom call, but it was amazing to be in that environment and to learn the content that other students at that age were learning. It was incredible. It was so good. So I'm so thankful for all three of these amazing men who allowed me to learn more information on the topic of osteoporosis, and it truly helped me and boosted my understanding in the topic. But of course, I couldn't fully rely on the information given by my 3 interviews, as I still had lots of more specific questions that I would need to tackle for my research. This leads into the research that I've done alone through the form of assessments. I've gathered 4 of the most, in my opinion, important game-changing research articles that I've done, which shows how my thinking process evolved through the early months of ISM. As I wanted to come to a sort of approach to osteoporosis myself, I first looked at for existing approaches to treating osteoporosis. At the time, and obviously this still is, I found drug therapy and surgical outlooks. This assessment was vital to the direction that my research would take me, because these were the only 2 significant portions of research or approaches that existed, and it gave me information on what I would need to do as a student to actually pull through with these types of research. After seeing the dangers of drug therapy and the unreasonability that for a high school student to be able to create their own hormonal drug against in combat of osteoporosis, I saw it far more fit to look into and research surgical outlooks, which would be easier not only to study but also to model after, as modeling a drug can be impossible without testing it on live subjects, which is not good to do for a high school student. I mean, it's possible, but I wouldn't want to put anyone's life in danger. For the 4th assessment, a research assessment that I've also done, I felt was critical, as I looked into several different approaches, surgical approaches to osteoporosis at the time. The problem with surgical outlooks is that while it did not directly address the problem of osteoporosis, it did, however, address the problems that resulted from osteoporosis, which mainly includes fractures, compression fractures, stenosis, and so on. So, while surgical outlooks didn't actually treat the problem, increasing the welfare of the patient was something that I was still extremely interested in. Reducing the pain in the patient is still helping people in my sight, so I would consider it a success. So after narrowing down to 2 certain types of surgeries, I found vertebroplasty and kyphoplasty. I analyzed the costs and the benefits of both of these methods, and I found a far greater interest in kyphoplasty due to its increased success in the operation room and its overall ease and innovativity, which I just found awesome, and something I felt that I wanted to look into more. In terms of my project, I wanted to circle in on something that would be a problem and something that I could overall improve on. So this is why I looked into current problems that existed with balloon kyphoplasty, which is the surgery that I was interested in. I found one of the major problems included cement leakage, which is in balloon kyphoplasty, where the internal cast that is put into the spine leaks out because the cast itself starts out as a liquid, and we obviously wouldn't want particles or other chemicals from that cement going into your bloodstream. So with my new innovation, I wanted to tackle the problem of cement leakage, as well as many other minor problems such as long-term pain, or the cement refusing to seal correctly, and so on, and many other small problems. And as I analyzed these problems, I began on my original work, which was essentially a summation of the research that I found over the years. I mean, sorry, not over the years, over the first couple of months in ISM. So at this point, halfway throughout the year, I've picked up several different ideas and certain skills that I feel are important to a student, such as discipline, communication, planning, and professionalism. And I've just grown these just through completing my tasks in ISM, and which is another reason why I highly value this class, and it has truly been something that has prepared me for the future far more than any class that I've taken before. I just wanted to mention that because this was not easy for me, but it was an experience that I felt that I needed. So what was my original work? I wanted to create a manual on the problem of osteoporosis. My goal of the original work was to help the audience. Now the audience was two different sets of people. One was patients experiencing osteoporosis in their families, obviously, to understand what they were going through, because it's important to inform your patient to allow them to make precautions to prolong their own life. The second audience was for doctors themselves. As I've shadowed doctors before, I realized that they Google a lot. It's impossible for one person to keep up with every single different disease that they see from every patient to patient. So creating a specific manual just for osteoporosis seemed like a feasible idea, as a doctor would easily be able to pull out a book, open it up, and see, yes, these are the certain treatments that are available. These are how other doctors have treated this, what's going on in the first place. And I felt that by writing the manual in a easy verbiage, that's something very easy to read and consume, I'd be setting up doctors and both patients for success in the long term. So I built up my original work, which was a semester project, through the study of my assessments, my interacting with other surgery visits through pre-existing conditions, and I began to write a thesis on what the original work would look like. My process for the original work was quite simple because writing medical papers has already been done far many times before. What I wanted to do was look for characteristics of existing papers and pinpoint what they were doing right, such as top journal articles. What certain characteristics did they have? What types of verbiage did they use? And what type of topics did they, and ways that they presented their information was successful, and whatever that sort of methodology was used, I implemented into my own reference manual to be able to have the best product for both the consumer, for all types of consumers. So pretty much by identifying successful characteristics from pre-existing documents, I was able to create my original work. This is a preview of my original work. It's a 17-page document, and here's a small table of contents that is included on the side. Obviously, you can find this in my final product folder, but I felt that my original work was a successful display of the culmination of knowledge that I've gained over the first semester, and honestly, a full-length and in-depth article on what osteoporosis is and how it's treated, and I'm extremely happy with the outcome. As we move on to the final semester, the idea of the final product comes into display. With my final product, I wanted to apply all the knowledge that I've gained from the first semester. So therefore, the goal of my product eventually became to create a new approach to balloon kyphoplasty, which was a surgery that I've been studying for so long. Originally, my idea for my final product was to simply perform fake surgery on an orange, as I believed that performing sutures would be a good representation of my learning. Yet I realized that through all the research that I've done, creating a novel approach to balloon kyphoplasty would much better represent my learning and would but be a greater project to both display and create in the long run. So with my new approach to balloon kyphoplasty, I wanted to have a higher success rate of surgeries and overall improve on current technology. I would do this by starting a mentor relationship with a surgeon willing to help me out on my project, and do a further research on seeing how I can implement a better strategy for balloon kyphoplasty, and finally to demonstrate this idea on a live simulation. And obviously, by starting a mentor, I had to get a mentor. So fortunately, Dr. Alexander Satin came into play in my ISM journey once again, and we met up several times, and I had the joy of being able to speak with him and watch him perform 2 balloon kyphoplasties, and he showed me so much. He's a very, very intelligent man, and I'm so glad to be under his shadow. I'm so glad to be shadowing him at his workplace, as he is a spine surgeon. I got to meet with patients too, and outside of my project, I've learned so many ideas, things, and necessary things that doctors will need to know, and I found it to be a very pleasurable experience. So with my mentor visits, I've obviously learned about doctor visits, being able to treat customers, patients, and I've overall just gained extremely valuable input from the wisdom that he has to offer. So over my time, as I began to develop my project, I began the tribal mechanism, which was a balloon kyphoplasty tool that is a new approach to balloon kyphoplasty. The difference would be the 3-prong system. What currently exists is simply a rod that's inserted into the vertebral body of the spine, as you can see here. This certain spine fracture going on. What would happen is that instead of a singular body going in to expand, I'd have a triple system, which would allow a highly successful rate of, and it would overall improve a lot of currently existing problems, such as cement leakage and the proper positioning of the internal cast. While it was a great idea, it was extremely long, and my mentor was able to look at my project and say, hey, you could extremely simplify this and make it easy for the viewer. He reminded me that I was only proposing an idea to actual surgeons and not implementing it, forcing it upon surgeons. After all, I'm only a high school student, and I shouldn't really be forcing medical professionals who know what they're doing for 30 plus years or many more to say this is the new idea, this is what you should do. So by simplifying it and adjusting my tone, we were able to create a far more successful poster board that was a lot more simpler in tone, but yet more appealing. So while display still may be complicated, me and my mentor was be able to create surgery 2. I'm just kidding. But while that is clearly a joke, Dr. Alexander Satin has really helped me, and as you can see with in my final product folder, my updated version of the project, of the presentation board, and a sample video as I present to surgeons. I feel extremely happy with the outcome of my final product. I never thought I'd have the opportunity to make something like this, to innovate, to create, and as the final product, I was able to create my own 3D model and to print it out. I have the model of my own tool in which I was creating. That was just an extremely fulfilling experience, and I have to say it's thanks to ISM. ISM has been a truly amazing class, It's helped me to do awesome things that soon this new novel approach will be patented, as I'm submitting a patent request for this new innovation as recommended by my mentor, because he said that this tool could be a game changer and it could be something that is easily implemented into surgery and operation rooms worldwide. And while I'm glad to have the opportunity, it's amazing for me. And I do want to give a short thanks to Evan Spies, my teacher for ISM. He's been incredible, and while we've had some difficult times, some rocky roads, some bumps in the journey, he's pulled through for me and my peers, and he's been so supportive and just been so available, which I love, and something that more teachers need to do nowadays. So I thank you all for listening to my presentation, and no, research is no more underway. It's no more underway. The final product is complete, and I hope you enjoy looking through my innovation and my science fair poster and all the entire process which came to my final product in the Google Drive folder. I thank you all so much for listening, and if you are a new student, I highly suggest you consider taking ISM. Goodbye. This has been Samuel Joseph, and you have been wonderful.